Just hit a button, Morty, give me a beat!
Oh man, okay, alright,
The limitations of Solskjaer and Lampard, Manchester United 0, Chelsea 0, a tactical analysis. For cheap good quality football jerseys, go over to www.jerseyfever.com where they have the new season's jerseys available from just $25. A link will be left in the description, and if you use the coupon code ATLANTISFOOTBALL, you'll get 5% off. Also remember to give the video a like if you enjoy it, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel by clicking the icon in the bottom right of your screen. So going into the game, it was going to be interesting to see the approach each manager took. Solskjaer had success in his most recent game in a 5-2-3 shape against PSG, and it seemed plausible that he would stick with that system, especially from a defensive perspective. I did an analysis of that game which will be linked in the description and in the eye above for you to check out after. Lampard has also used a variety of systems throughout his tenure, but the most success he's had against Manchester United has been with a 3-4-3 system, which was so effective in the FA Cup last season as shutting down United's attacking build-up. What we saw is Solskjaer reverted to a 4-2-3-1 shape with De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka at right back, Shaw at left back either side of Maguire and Lindelof. Fred and McTominay started as a midfield double pivot with Bruno Fernandes in front, Mata started from the right, Daniel James played from the left and Marcus Rashford started up front. Lampard did go with a 3-4-3 shape with Mendy and goal, back three of Azpilicueta, Thiago Silva and Zuma, Chilwell and Reece James are wingbacks with a midfield double pivot of Jorginho and Kante. Pulisic started from the left of the front three, Havertz from the right and Werner started centrally. So from the start of the game we saw Lampard use a 3-4-2-1 shape in possession with Reece James and Ben Chilwell pushing forward in line with the midfield double pivot of Jorginho and Kante, as Havertz and Pulisic pushed up the pitch, taking up positions in the half spaces. Solskjaer looked to press Lampard's side aggressively from their build-up in a 4-2-3-1 shape, with Fernandes sitting behind Rashford as he pressed the goalkeeper or centre-back and cut off the passing lane into Kante or Jorginho, whoever dropped deep to receive the ball. For the first 10 minutes, United were very effective with their press. Chelsea were trying to build out, but when they would play a pass into Kante with his back to goal, McTominay was excellent at applying pressure, forcing Chelsea backwards, cutting off their passing options and leading to a long ball up the pitch, giving United back possession. When Chelsea did beat the press, United would drop back into a 4-4-2 shape, which still did resemble a 4-2-4 pressing shape, as when the ball was moved out to one of the wide centre-backs, we would see James and Mata push forward in line with Rashford and Fernandes. The front two were now content to allow Chelsea's centre-backs to have the ball in this part of the pitch and instead looked to cut the passing lanes into Jorginho and Kante. In possession, United's 4-2-3-1 moved to a 2-4-3-1 shape as the fullbacks pushed forward, which allowed Mata to move infield and create a box shape alongside Fernandes and the United midfield double pivot. Whilst we also saw Daniel James as usual hold his width a lot more on the left side than Mata did on the right. We saw Chelsea press aggressively initially when United had the ball in their own box with a narrow front three man-to-man pressing the keeper and the two centre-backs. One of the central midfielders would then push up onto McTominay or Fred, whichever one dropped deep to provide a passing option, and the wing-backs pushed forward high up the pitch to press Wan-Bissaka or Shaw when they received the ball. However, I felt that Chelsea relaxed their press far too quickly and it was not intense enough to catch Manchester United out in their own defensive third, allowing United to play through Fred and McTominay, and when this would happen, Chelsea's 3-4-3 pressing shape would drop back into the middle third but still maintain a high front three and their narrow pentagon shape. This was done by Lampard for the same reason it was deployed against United last season in the FA Cup. United's fullbacks are not the best at progressing the attack, which is why Lampard has used a pentagon shape in recent games against them, in order to force United to build up their attack through the fullbacks, making it easier for Chelsea to close up the gaps in the centre of the field by remaining narrow and compact and making the United attack more predictable. When Chelsea were then pushed back into their own half, they would then drop into a 5-4-1 shape with Havertz and Pulisic moving back to create a flat four in midfield. I felt that both sides really lacked an ability to open up the other. Chelsea did control possession for a good 20-minute period after the 10-minute mark, and their main attacking pattern seemed to be shifting the ball out to the wing-backs, and as the United full-backs pushed up to apply the pressure, shift the ball back inside, from where Pulisic and Havertz could then make a run into the space between the centre-back and the full-back, and potentially receive the ball in the channel. This is where Chelsea looked most dangerous, when Werner was able to isolate a player in the left-sided channel moving into the box. However, this attacking pattern was not utilised enough. On the other hand, United's main attacking pattern came from trying to feed balls into Mata and Fernandes between the lines, and in comparison to Chelsea were a lot better at getting the ball into the final third. However, they lacked quality when they got there. Daniel James is far too one-dimensional, offering nothing down the left flank, which meant that United's attack for most of the first half were pretty toothless. Most threatening when they were able to feed Marcus Rashford's runs in behind the back line. Here we see Thiago Silva has been drawn towards the ball, and when the ball gets shifted to Mata inside, Rashford is already making a run into the space vacated by Thiago Thiago Silva, but unfortunately his one-on-one shot was saved by Mendy, which was probably United's most clear-cut chance of the game. This lack of creativity from both sides can be seen, as by the end of the match neither side had recorded an XG higher than 1, Manchester United with 0.65 expected goals and Chelsea with just 0.22. If we look at the XG rates throughout the game, we can see that the game was very tight and conservative for the first half, but Manchester United definitely had the better of the second in terms of the quality of chances created. So going into the second half, we saw United continue with their pressing shape in a 4-4-2, which would become a 4-2-4 or a 4-2-3-1 when United sought to press high. Solskjaer's side continued to do a good job of stopping Chelsea being able to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch, as when the ball was played into a Chelsea player behind the pressing front two, Fred or McTominay were ready to move out and pressurise them, and stopping them being able to turn and move forward with the ball. When United had the ball, they continued to have Bruno Fernandes and Mata as an attacking midfield double pivot, with each sitting in the half space wide of Kante and Jorginho, which I thought was a very good tactical idea from Solskjaer, as it would open up more passing lanes for Fred or McTominay when they had the ball. However, I thought this attacking pattern could have been executed a bit better. Here we see an example that Chilwell was sitting narrow and relatively high up the pitch from Zuma, which is closing down Mata's space. If Aaron Wan-Bissaka had been positioned higher up the pitch at this phase of play, or looked to make continuous bursting runs in behind the left back, then this would have forced Chilwell to drop deeper, and thus would have opened up more space and a passing lane into Mata. Chelsea continued with their pentagon-shaped press in their 3-4-3, which I thought was quite disjointed, with the front five and back five not in cohesion. We see that the front five have pushed higher up the pitch, but the back five have maintained deep positions, which means that De Gea plays one long pass over the frontline press into Fernandes, and he has a massive amount of time to control the ball, turn and push United forward straight into Chelsea's half from one kick. Solskjaer did make an early change around the 60th minute, bringing on Pogba into the attacking midfield position, shifting Fernandes to Mata's wide playmaker role, having Marcus Rashford on the left and having Cavani up front. I thought this allowed Marcus Rashford to add a lot more creativity from the left side than Daniel James had, and Cavani showcased his excellent movement ahead of the ball on a few occasions. This was probably the team that Solskjaer should have started with, as Mata and Daniel James did not have the quality or decisiveness to create chances when they got into good positions, and often ended up giving possession away or playing an easy pass which stifled United's attack. Chelsea were considerably more conservative than in previous games. Lampard should have used the flanks a lot more aggressively, particularly on the right side, by allowing Reece James to be the main progressor of the ball, funneling the attack down the right side, and also he was a considerable threat in the final third, as we saw with his tremendous deep cross midway through the second half. Lampard should have been more focused on looking to draw Luke Shaw out of that right-sided channel on more occasions, in order to have Werner making runs down that channel, in order to get Harry Maguire in one-on-ones, which would have made United look a lot more vulnerable than they were. Instead, Werner was used far too centrally, Pulisic and Havertz did not provide enough in terms of creating chances in the final third, and taking off Werner and using Abraham as a central striker killed Chelsea's quick transition in attack, because they no longer had Werner's pace to penetrate in behind United's back line, and this led to Chelsea getting penned in and allowed United to pretty much dominate the last 30 minutes, which was when they recorded their highest XG throughout the game. So overall this game was quite disappointing from both sides. United didn't have as much trouble getting into the final third as they have done in recent games, but they did not have the quality to create anything of substance until Pogba and Cavani came on the field. James does not look good enough to be on United's left wing, constantly wasting good positions, and the movement and pattern of play down the channels needs to be heavily worked on, as we often see Shaw and Wan-Bissaka not being aggressive enough in terms of their forward runs and positioning, which can in turn close up the space in the middle of the field for Mata and Fernandes. In the end, both sides showed a lack of intelligent possession systems, with both seemingly lacking coordinated movement between players to open up positions and move the ball forward. A lot of the movement is very one-dimensional and static, which makes it easy for the opposition to cut off passing lanes and man-to-man press, which shows the limitations of both these managers. Lampard definitely disappointed more, but for Solskjaer it's the same problems that he's faced since the start of last season. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, remember to give it a like and subscribe to the channel, as I will be doing more match analysis videos in the coming weeks. Also check out some of my other videos like my Manchester United PSG analysis in the description below or in the eye above.